Good evening, guys. In this video, I would like to explain you how to create a simple Python Folium map with on-click marker with some styling applied to this marker. I will show you everything on the example created by myself recently, which was the map with an instant access to Google Street View from any location, like this. I'm clicking on the marker, I've got it styled. Now I have the pop-up opened and I can open the street view in the particular location. So this is exactly what I would like to show you today. So let's get started. I have already the blank map opened here, to which the code looks like follows. We have just the Folium library imported, the map with coordinates set, as you can see already, and the last task is saving the map under the file like you see here, under the name blank map. The simple click event on Folium maps can be found under these following links with the nice example provided, which shows exactly how to develop a feature such as this. Obviously, this is another plugin which somewhat reminds the on-click feature on Folium map. Namely, this is the latitude and longitude plugin, which shows our coordinates everywhere where the marker is clicked. This particular example goes further, as we can develop the macro JavaScript dedicated exactly for this purpose. It can be done by assigning a specific class in Python code, and this class can be called from MacroElement, which must be installed. This is the prerequisite for the code such as this. So let's develop something like this first, and then we will see how to adjust the marker to our specific purposes. So let's get started then. As the first, we need to take care about our prerequisites, namely installation of the relevant library, because having just Folium is simply not enough for the purpose as presented previously from the GIS Stack Exchange website. So let's import another one, which is Jinja 2, and import the Branca library. For this particular libraries, we need to fetch some specified elements. From Branca element, we will import MacroElement, and from Jinja2, we will import template. Then we can save it, and it allows us to start building up the particular code as shown on the example provided. I won't copy and paste this code. I will rewrite it with some specified content which already been attached. So at the very beginning, we will start to develop the class. Can be called like click for one marker, which means that we will call the marker after every on-click feature. However, you can call this class as you want. It's not a problem. Inside of it, this class, we will defining what roughly this class will be represent. This is Folium click for marker feature. Now we are calling the template. But before I start writing down something inside, let me just enclose this template and define some individual stuff for this template. This is the initialization which must be done if you want to have it working. The name you can provide as you want. The website tells us about lat long popup. I will use it for my purpose. It will be street view. And at the very end, we need to initialize this particular template. Let's call it like GSV. And call it as the appended to the map, as the child. Now if I save it and run, I see that my console throws error. So let's see what happened here. Click for one mile. All right, so this is the error here. I need to remove the E and stick to the name which has been defined roughly in the class, because in the definition we need to provide exactly the same name. Let's save it again and hit run. Now it should be fine. Now it's correct. although nothing happened to the map because our class which has been defined is already empty. So let's simply carry on, add some JavaScript code inside and see how our map will behave further. First of all, the pure template may be not enough, as we need to define the macro by providing the curly bracket and percent symbol. The macro defines roughly what will happen next. This is the script, which refers to this example and kwargs argument in Python. Kwargs argument means that unlike to orgs argument, we are passing keyword arguments in Python, unlike orgs which pass non-keyword arguments. In our case, the keyword argument is a class which we have created. By referring to this class, we will pass the stuff inside of this macro with keyword argument defined. But now we need to close this class down, close this macro down, and for this purpose we will use similar curly bracket and percent sign and simply type end macro. Make sure that everything happens within these triple quotes here, which can be recognized in the idle Python console by green coloration. That distinguishes this whole code from another code, which is strictly Python code. But this code, which will happen here, is rather front-end code, including HTML, CSS, and JavaScript code. All right, so looks like we have already created the template with macro script. Surely everything is blank here, so let's start to create something. First of all, let's create the variable which will define marker for us. Let's call it like new marker, which will provide the leaflet marker. Everything which happens inside comes directly from Leaflet JavaScript mapping software because Python Folium is based on Leaflet JavaScript. Therefore, everything which is injected as the JavaScript code through the Python classes and Branca templates, it's aimed at developing the Python Folium by using pure Leaflet JavaScript extensions. So we have created the marker, but because this marker doesn't have any other characteristic elements like especially coordinates, it probably still won't appear on the map. Let me run the module and refresh the map. We will see that again nothing happens, so we need to keep going with our work. To this marker we need to probably define some function. Let's call it new marker event and open and close this function. As the first method used here will be defining the coordinates, so type it set.long, and we are approaching the moment where it must be added to our map. It works on slightly different basis because we cannot simply type add to map here. We need to use something else. Namely, we need to call the name of the map generated by Python Folium. This name of the map looks different because as I open the as I open the elements, I will see that my map has ID something like this. This ID is hard to remember. Indeed, it's the method which can define our ID as we want in Python, but there's no need to show it right now, just for the purpose of understanding from where does it come from. I wanted to show you. So our situation will require to use something like this. In double curly bracket, we will type add to this, as this has been defined here, and major parent get name. This parent get name. The major parent is obviously our map. So the tool will get name of the ID, the map generated by Python Folium and shown in the inspection. In the website is inspection, as I shown you recently. All right, next we can close it down, and after closure of this function, provide something similar which we are doing in Leaflet. This parent get name, as explained previously, on tick event new marker. Thanks to this, we should be able to create the marker. Let it try. As you can see, we are able to create the marker in random place, but nothing else happens. Our marker is coming up nicely, so we can think about another features. let's assign coordinates to it. Our latitude and our longitude. So the function which comes from Leaflet app, and see what will happen. We still can click and generate the marker, but once we inspect and see the console, the coordinates are coming. All right, looks good. Let's carry on. Our another step is to assigning pop-up for our marker. By going to the map, under the variables defined, we can type something like this. New marker and provide method int pop-up, where inside we can use lat and long. Why they won't come together as the error will appear. It cannot be executed this way. As you can see, nothing happens. And console says that append child not parameter cannot be executed. Therefore, we need to back to our code and write some HTML tags first. Maybe preferably we should also use some separator between them, comma, and then plus long. Once saved, hit run again, and the pop-up comes out, right? It's the same value as provided in the console. Cool. So we can proceed to the next step. Now I intentionally overwritten the existing on-click marker feature with lat-long pop-up plugin for Python Folium. Like you see here, we've got the Folium lat-long pop-up and added to the map. And let's see what is happening right now. Our marker is overriding by this plugin, which basically works exactly at the same basis. The difference lies only in the pop-up. So let's take me this code down and bring my map back to the previous version. And we have our defined pop-up previously, which can be done exactly in this code. And we type latitude, and instead of comma, place break. We should have pretty much the same content as displayed in the lat-long plugin. But it's not everything. As you may have noticed, the pop-up doesn't come automatically. So we need to go back to our code and provide the method open pop-up. Right? Now everything seems to look very similar, apart of the decimal numbers which come enormously here. We have about 15 numbers after comma, which doesn't look so nice. Therefore, we need to do something with it. And here is the method presented in my previous video, toPrecision, which returns a string representing the number object to the specified precision. The peculiarity of this method is that if we apply it to negative latitude or longitude, the number might be shifted by 1. So if you set precision to 7 decimals, you might have them only 6 when dealing with some North American coordinates. But this is an alternative to this method which can be used, and I will apply it in this video, namely toFixed method. toFixed method formats number using fixed point notation, which means that regardless the whole number, the amount of digits after comma will be always the same. So let's go with this method. As it has been done recently, StreetView has exactly 7 decimals, so our toFix method could include 7 of them also, but this time is not necessary. So let's put them 5, for example. They must be added to two variables, latitude and longitude. This particular function have been discussed in the recent video. The lat-long function must be executed twice, firstly for latitude and secondly for longitude. Now we are adding the method for this to this function, which will be toFixed as discussed previously, and in the brackets we will put 5. And exactly the same must be applied to longitude. Then we can save, execute the terminator and refresh our map. And as you can see, our decimals have been trimmed down to 5 digits. Alright, so now we've got our lat-long pop-up Folium plugin retrieved by using another way. But it's just the first step, to be honest. Since we undertook this exercise, our goal is not to have the coordinates populated only, but something more in this pop-up. And I've decided to show you how to turn this coordinates pop-up into the on-click Street View feature. So let's work on it. For the time being, we can keep these coordinates and expand our concatenation. And after text break, we will make something extra, namely, we will start our adventure with adding the image. So it comes in the image tag, simply HTML. So let's open and close it down. And as the source, we will use SVG file. It is based in the same directory where the file is. And preferably we can change the size, but maybe not now. Let's give it a go and see what will happen. Something went wrong. Unexpected token. So let's back to our map. Yeah, I've forgotten to place quote here. So this is lesson for you to remember things such as this. Now map is back, but it's definitely not the thing we want. The image came in its full size. We don't want it. Therefore, we need to define the dimensions of our image. It can be done by defining just one parameter. In our case, it can be width. Let's set it up as 70, for example, and hit run. Now, after refresh, our pop-up looks much better. We've got both coordinates and we have the Street View icon underneath. But this icon remains inactive as no further links have been provided so far. So we can work on it by enclosing our image inside of the link. So let's place some empty link here so far. Click Save, click Run, and refresh. Now by hovering the image, we will see that something is happening, and you can see here that our hyperlink is working but redirects to nowhere at this moment. By returning to our code, we can now take care about our Street View link, and I think this is the time for turning these pure coordinates into workable Street View link. So how will we do it? First of all, let's provide a major link for Street View to home apps. Is it opening somewhere? But it's still one crucial thing missing here. What we need to do in our link, we need to provide target equal to blank option, which will prevent our map from escaping to another window, which in this case is Google Maps. Click Save, click Run, then refresh our map. In our case, we need to open it again as we lost it recently. And now when you click on the map, you can see that Google Maps open in the separate tab, which is perfect. However, it's still wrong and our link is still not useful because it opens in our geolocated place instead of place pointed out on the map. So we need to work on it then. Considering the instance of Google Street View, we need to find some link which will allow us to initialize the tool. There are several links, as far as I remember, there are 4, but we can use the most simple one, which looks like you can see. To the generic Street View address, we must provide latitude and longitude for the specified place, indicated by on-click our marker on the map. So it's nothing else like concatenation of the link string inside of the href HTML tag. So let's get back to our map and simply use the link as discussed previously. I can copy the link to this particular tag. So far it will look like this, but these values must be provided, and they surely will, because now we are doing something like this. We are closing down the quotes and concatenating with our current variables defined earlier. Should be pretty much like this. And let's give it a go. Something is wrong. Lon is not defined. Alright, because we defined LNG instead of lon. Okay. Seems like work. That's perfect then. We have already access to Google Street View from our Python Folium map. Excellent. But this method has one significant downside. Indeed, we can place marker wherever we want and access the Street View, but we do not know about the Street View coverage around the world. Therefore, outside of roads or some pavements, we may suffer from lack of Street View visibility. Let me try it on the example like here. If you click somewhere on field and repeat the procedure, you may get the information that Street View imagery is not available for this particular location. This is a shame. However, the method itself can be really useful as long as we are placing markers along some streets, pavements, or other places which we know pretty much. Okay, cool. It looks like we've done the first part of our exercise. That's perfect. From now you will know how to make on-click instant access to Street View from your Folium map. And admittedly, this is the way of how we can provide an instant access to other platforms, not necessarily Street View, but other websites which permalink is quite familiar to us and can be quite easily concatenated with coordinates provided by JavaScript code, which is presented during our work today. So let's jump to another part of our exercise, namely styling our pop-up and marker. There are several ways of how we can customize our marker, both in Leaflet as well as Python Folium map, but I've chosen Font Awesome, which appears to be the best for our circumstances. So the website is like you can see here. Next you are going to icons and you can browse icons by their name. By typing Street View, I'm getting some kit of icons. Let me pick up one of them. It can be this one. And what is the most important here? We have some ways of application this particular icon by using the class, which looks like you can see here in three ways: HTML, React, and Vue. Our case is HTML. In our code, we will provide new variable, which in this case will be constant, and call it font awesome icon. It will bring Leaflet div icon. You know div icon also as the plugin in Python Folium, but this time we are operating within Leaflet JavaScript mapping software because everything happens inside of this macro script. And this is our icon created, and the first option which will come inside will be HTML, where we will paste the code which is exactly here. Click for copy and paste inside. In this event, the constant has been created, but it's not everything. We need to pull this constant into our marker. Therefore, in our marker, we will use another option, new marker, set icon option. Set icon, inside of which we will post font awesome icon. Now it should be fine. Let me run the code and refresh the map. And it is, but what is the problem? Our marker is very small. There is one thing we need to do with it, namely inside of our HTML text, we need to add a multiplicator like this. X means that our font will be increased 3 times by size. When hit save, click run. Now it's better, as you can see. Our font looks nice, but we have some unforeseen box right next to, and it's driven by lack of other options relevant for defining our icon. Namely, we are missing icon size and icon anchor, which is crucial. Let's define icon size, which is expressed in Cartesian coordinate system. 0.0 will mean that our icon size will be very small, but we don't need this particular option to be implemented correctly as we have ready icon from font awesome. And another icon anchor will be more important because it will define the final position against of our mouse cursor. Now our icon looks correct. We've got the Pegman looking marker and auto-populated pop-up window. That's perfect. We are getting there. Our icon is black, but I think we would like to have another color. So in this purpose, essentially define the CSS class within the constant which we have defined, div icon. This class can have random name, but let's call it view icon. So the CSS class inside of JavaScript div icon element is defined by class name option. So the class name option will fetch the CSS style into the variable defined here. But this is the moment where we need to expand our macro script, being precise, expand our whole template, because from now our template won't be just macro script, but it will be also like HTML script. For this purpose, we should create another separate macro, which will be header. After our HTML macro has been created, we can pass the styling inside by using traditional HTML tags style. So inside of the style, we'll pass class for our street view icon. Let's use just one attribute, or just one property, make it green. Right, now we clearly see that our template is not simple anymore because we have two macros inside representing the whole front end silhouette. We have HTML, CSS macro and JavaScript macro, which is underneath. Let's sanitize it a bit. Alright, so I hope that you understand the structure which is already here. We can make this code better visible by pushing the elements frontward. Obviously just by the occasion in order to get you understanding this whole process. So this is what I've told you. Two macro elements, one macro element starts here, ends here, and another macro element starts here and ends here. Okay, let's save, let's run and refresh our map. Looks like we are missing something. Console says nothing, but we can back to our code and check where the problem might occur. Yeah, we haven't enclosed the style section. That probably makes problem indeed. Reading the code inside of macro is quite tough because it appears just in one color, light green, which is not the best for our eyes. Alright, we haven't provided correct color, green. There you go. Now we have our marker green. So now we will go to the very last step, styling the pop-up. So let's back to our code and see what can we do this time, because we are going to style our bind pop-up. The first thing which must be done is providing the class name for this particular pop-up, exactly at the same basis as we did for our icon. The class name we will provide it here. Then we need to do exactly the same for our pop-up. The construction looks quite long as we did the concatenation for launching the street view, but after closing it down we can put the comma and open curly bracket, then close this curly bracket here, and within this specified area type class name and call it like street view pop-up. Alright, now we can save. There is no need to run because nothing changed really. We need to go here and start to build up the styling accordingly. How the styling could be prepared. Firstly, our defined class should come. Next, the leaflet based class must appear. So let's start from the leaflet pop-up content wrapper. This is the class which defines style for our pop-up content. Exactly for this particular area. This is our pop-up and this is its content. But as I said, we must provide our own class earlier. Therefore, the street view pop-up will come here. And now we can start styling our content wrapper. Let's start from some typical option, background. Let's put some inch of green coloration as the marker has been greened itself. Background color light green. Now we can click save and we can run and see what has changed. There you go, our pop-up became green. Fine, so we can carry on with the styling. Go back to our code and carry on. Text color, put it green. Save, run, and the text has changed into green. That's perfect. Next, we can define border radius, 15 pixels, or make our text capital. So it looks like we could be completed within this particular section. Now the data has changed significantly. We've got the uppercase, we've got the capital font, we've got the border radius provided, but there are still some things to alter here, namely the appearance itself. As you can see, our image isn't on the front, and basically our pop-up could be slightly smaller because it looks too big comparing to the whole map. So let's cater for this second thing by now. Open our code and see what could we do. Let's define height parameter for example, 25 pixels and width parameter for 150 pixels and give it a go. Now our marker is smaller, but what is happening here is the same. Everything looks chaotically. Therefore, we need to make some other setup, and I think this is the moment for expanding completely new class, which will be Leaflet pop-up content. It refers just for particular content which falls inside of the pop-up wrapper discussed previously. So there are two things which can be applied here. Set margin to auto and display to block. Now it looks slightly better, but it's still not enough. Both latitude and longitude seems to be too close to the pop-up border. So I think we need some margin determining the space between the text and the edge of the pop-up itself. So let's back to our code and back to the first class, Leaflet pop-up content wrapper, where we can define some padding and check it right now. So padding works fine, but the font doesn't fall in the center. So another element is needed. Padding left could be a good option. Make it 20 pixels, for example. Now it looks better. Both latitude and longitude represents the middle part of the pop-up, which starts to look nice. Okay, so I think this is the moment when we can jump to styling our wrapped image. The image can be defined by using another class. Let's go with view pop-up again and add another class which will be aimed at this particular selector. It will be still the same class but targeted into the EMG selector in order to style just within this particular HTML element. So what we could do for EMG? Position absolute could be good, and the position itself. So the distance from the left hand side could be 40 pixels, for example, and the distance from the bottom, let's go with 5 pixels for now. So it doesn't follow the rule, if I could be honest, because I would like to have this image exactly on this tooltip. The tooltip could be an optical extension of this image and point out roughly the place where the marker should be clicked in order to get the Street View application. So nothing else left like back to our code again and try to work on it. By changing these parameters, we can try. It didn't help that much. So I believe it must be an error somewhere. Let me back to the code and double check. And obviously I can see that this is the wrong class here. When I save, then should be quite correct. Yeah, there you go. The pop-up looks significantly different, but the position of our image isn't right. Therefore, I think we need to back to our previous settings. 5 pixels. Okay, so our image is still quite high against the position of the text, but it's centered against the tooltip, then it's fine. But I think we can go with negative value here and see what will happen. Okay, now it looks like it's cool. Our pop-up looks better and better, but there are still some things to adjust here, namely the tooltip and close button coloration. Therefore, I'm more than welcome to fiddle with this code again, where I add another class underneath. called Leaflet popup tip is responsible for styling the tooltip or the tip of our popup. So here we should include stuff like background color, make it green, and everything looks quite correct. The color reflects the color of our marker, which is perfect. So let me work on the very last element, which is the close button. Go back to our code and create the new class, maybe here, which this time will be called Leaflet pop-up close button. Let's say that the color will be dark green, which code can be found on this website, colorhexa.com. So let's type dark green here, hit enter, and as an example we can have code such as this. So let's copy this code and paste it to our CSS styling. Paste it roughly here. Let's check has something changed or not. Unfortunately not. The X button is still gray, but what is the problem? The problem is exactly in the general leaflet code, which overwritten everything related to pop-up close button. Therefore we need to flag up the important thing. When we flag it up as an important setting, then it should come out. Yeah, like you see, the X button has changed already. And I'm afraid that we need to apply the important action for all other elements which we are going to place inside of this particular class. Let's use bold, weight bold, and see the difference. Yeah, the font has changed. We've got dark green coloration here, but looks like this close button isn't in the right place. I think I would like to have it on this side rather than this side. So in my code, I should provide another feature, adding right 150 pixels, which correspond to the whole width defined for the content wrapper. And again, mark it as an important change. Hit save and execute. Now looks like it's fine. But if I could moan just a bit, I could point out very last element which is missing, namely when I hover the X button, nothing changed. I think it could be nice to keep color changing as we are hovering this close button, like it was previously. Therefore, we need to go back to our code and provide another class, which this time will be hover. This is the same class as you can see above, but here everything what we need to do is just changing the text color. So color will be in and make it important against other settings, particular circumstances provided. Now when we hover the button, the color will change accordingly to green, to the same color in which both text, tip and the marker have been defined. Cool. So this is all which I wanted to explain you today. I hope that you enjoyed this video and learned something new. So see you in the next video.